This is John Gallagher from Raven, and you are watching GlamMetal.com.
Welcome to the Glam Metal Interview Series, presented by RockMusicStar.com, with host Thomas S. Orwart Jr.
Hey Glam Metalheads, welcome to episode number 11 of the Glam Metal Interview Series. It is October 16th, 2020, and we are cranking it up to 11 and going full metal for this feature. For this episode, I have John Gallagher, the vocalist, bass player, songwriter of one of the loudest metal bands on the planet, Raven, as my special guest. During this interview, John and I discuss the new Raven release, Metal City, and in addition, John reflects on the early days of Raven, the groundbreaking 1983 co-headlining tour with Metallica, and much, much more. So here he is, John Gallagher. We have a true metal legend as our guest today, John Gallagher of Raven. John, how are you today?
I am doing great, sir. It's good to be here.
John, let's start off by talking about the new Raven release, Metal City. It's the band's 14th studio release and first since Extermination, which came out in 2015. This record is absolutely amazing, and it's really getting some awesome reviews so far.
Yeah, it's always a good thing. No, we knew we had a good record in the writing process, but how good it became from then was a strange and wonderful journey. We had the songs written, and then our drummer had a heart attack and quit the band. And then we got this new guy, Halen, in, who's a bundle of energy and a real shot in the arm. And his input took these songs really to another level. And, you know, it harkens back to the early stuff we've done, you know, the Rock Until You Drop, Wiped Out, All for One. It's got that kind of attitude and energy, but it's not a retread. This is the 21st century version and has a production to accordingly go along with that, you know. So it's the best of both worlds and venturing into a new one. So, yeah, we are over the moon with how it turned out and having this reaction. You know, we've been round the block once or twice or 59 times, so you get a little cynical. But to get this reaction, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, not only is it an amazing 10-track record, but the album artwork is pretty cool too. I have to say it's probably my favorite Raven record cover.
Yeah, we've had a couple of good ones and a couple of stinkers. It's, you know, it's always a bit of a crapshoot. And usually what happens with a good album cover is somebody has a great idea from the get-go. You have a concept that you can build around. And, you know, Extermination was one of them. We had a decent cover for this. But this one went far beyond. It's a whole realized concept. Mike Heller came up with the idea for a comic book. He had an idea for a T-shirt which didn't work out. We said, well, why don't we do a comic book whole thing for the art, where there's a piece of art for every song, and we all, you know, went crazy, chipped in ideas. The thank you list is basically the ad page you would have in like an old Marvel or DC comic. So it's got all those little quirks and stuff all the way through it. And it's just, you know, I was blown away. I'd seen all the art, but to get the final product in my hands, it was like, wow, we've knocked it out of the park here. So it's the full immersive experience as it was, you know, when we were, you know, back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, when you actually had good art and good music.
Yeah, I remember those days. Those were good old days. Now, has the fact that you guys haven't been on the road to support this, has that hindered record sales at all, or do you find that the sales of it are doing really great? Because, you know, us metal fans have nothing to do nowadays except, you know, listen to music in our homes.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. It's the fact that it is a great record and it's been well received by the press. I mean, we've got like 60, 70 reviews, and I've got one that's a little snarky. One that's unprecedented. We've never had press like that.
Yeah.
So you take it with a pinch of salt, but it's great to have. And the fans are digging it. They're getting into it immediately, which is really, really good. So yeah, the situation of not being able to play live. People are hungry for music. So yeah, that helps a little bit. That's for sure.
Yeah. What was the writing process like for this record? Do you guys, pretty much just write as many tracks as you need to record, or do you have, a lot of extra tracks, or how does it work?
Well, we're very prolific. We've always written all the time. So we had quite a heavy touring schedule for Extermination. So by about a year in, your brain starts ticking over again. And I was just on a writing binge. Personally, I came up with 30-odd songs.
Wow.
And they were good. That's the kick. I mean, usually you just come up with something and follow it down and see where it goes and stand back and go, is this worth pursuing? Is it, does it make you want to jump up and run around and what have you? But these did. And Mark got inspired and he came up with some absolutely killer songs. So between the two of us, we had basically a buffet of songs to go, okay, we're going to craft this new album. What would be a great opener? this one, or this one, and so pre-sequence it. So we had maybe 14 songs on board going, okay, between this lot, this hangs together and works as an album. And that got distilled down to 11. And we took one of those songs and it's the extra track for the Japanese version.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
Rock This Town, which is a cool song in its own right. But as far as our concept, we wanted a 10-song album that people can get their hands around, get their head around, that doesn't drone on for, like a double album. I mean, actually, Extermination is almost a double album if you're looking in vinyl terms.
Uh-huh.
So it was a little long in that sense. And I think there's a bit of an attention span thing, or maybe, again, it's just habit from, the glory days, as it were, where, you had those 10, 11 songs, and when it finished, you wanted to put it on again. And that's what we wanted, all killer, no filler.
Yeah, well, you
all the way through.
Yeah, you definitely accomplished that, for sure. And Mark's guitar playing is just insane on this record.
Yeah, he's, we all inspired each other. I mean, his playing, it's just so off the wall. That guitar solo on When Worlds Collide sounds like a mad scientist.
Yeah, for sure.
Out there, totally out there. But, he's got the full, the craziness and some great melodic parts. Some of the leads have these really memorable melodies that come out. And that's a whole part of what we do. It's a balancing act between the melody and the noise and the chaos and the order. And, a song has to kind of negotiate all this territory and tick all the right boxes. And it's like, yeah, this works. This is what we are. This is our sound,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, there is a lot of chaos and everything, but I mean, you still have the, you don't lose the song structure, and there is the melody in there, and it's just great songs. I mean, what it comes down to.
Well, that's you've really nailed it there. That's what it's all about. It's all about the songs. I mean, and I'll put these songs up against anyone. There's just some great bands out there, and some of them can't write that well. It's like, yeah, it's all right. But there's bands of our age, or bands that have been around almost as long as we have, and they're putting records out, and they're doing well on the road, and the records say, well, it's okay. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad. But this isn't not bad. This is a great record, hands down.
Do you... Okay. I was going to ask...
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you think it's because, the fact that Raven really never made it to be, hugely popular. Is it because you still have that hunger? Do you think? I think that's maybe why some of the bands, that have made it kind of like put out lackluster records, after a while. And bands like Raven, who never really make it, continue to get, to raise the bar with each record and get better and better. Do you think, that might be a reason? Because you still have that hunger for success?
It could be. I don't know. It's just, I would never go, this is all right. This'll do. The this'll do attitude has never entered this band. There may be records people go, well, I don't like that as much as this one, but it was never entered into in a this'll do.
Yeah. I gotcha.
No.
All right.
The only time that ever reared its head, funnily enough, was starting the Stay Hard album, because it was pitched that we initially had to do a record to get off our English record company, Neat Records. And it was like, well, we're not giving them the good stuff. And then all of a sudden it turned into a record for Atlantic. So, let's get rid of all these so-called B-movie songs, ditch them, and bring in songs like Get It Right and stuff like that. And, that's the only time that ever came up.
Yeah.
And it's you're putting your name on it. You've got to be able to stand behind it,
Yeah. I want to go back to the very beginning of Raven, back from in 1974 when the band was formed in Newcastle, England. What was the band? What did the band sound like back then?
Well, we were heavily influenced by, at that point, pretty much everything. We were very lucky. Newcastle got a lot of bands come in, and the main hall was the Newcastle City Hall, which holds maybe 2,000 people. So you'd get bands that would be playing, say, stadiums in the States, and they'd play a 2,000-seater hall. Like famously, Van Halen came in 1979 with literally a stadium's worth of sound and lights in this little hall, and it was like, whoa. So you got to see up close what was going on, how they played, how they interacted with the audience, and we soaked all that in. Why did this band go down well? Why did this band suck? And you'd learn from that, So 1974 we formed. We could barely play. I think we had an acoustic guitar between us. So Christmas we got cheap electrics and we started to learn. Our first gig was in December 75 at our high school, and we played like 3 or 4 originals, and we played covers by Queen, Status Quo, Deep Purple, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we gravitated towards those faster, crazier stuff. So if it was Deep Purple, we wouldn't be doing Smoke on the Water, we'd be doing Highway Star.
Nice.
And if it was Montrose, we wouldn't be doing Rock Candy, we'd be doing Space Station Number 5. And that all went in, and that's how we came up with our thing, from taking the more manic end of stuff and revving it up,
Yeah, what led to the decision that you would become the vocalist and bass player and Mark would be the guitarist?
Well, initially we were a 4-piece until like 79, and Paul Bowden, the friend down the street who started the band, we'd all take turns singing. Because, who sings? Nobody sings. Oh, we got to sing. Okay, we'll sing. And gradually I just ended up doing more of it. Mm-hmm. So by the time it came to like 78, 79, I was singing like 90% of it. And when we went as a 3-piece in late 79, I was singing everything. I think we've only had one song, which is Rock Hard on the Crash Bang Wallop EP, where I said, Mark, you should sing this. And he did a great job, And he's a secret weapon with backing vocals. He sounds like 10 people at once, But it just happened. It was just, I just gravitated towards it. I could always do crazy high screams, but I just had to learn how to sing properly in between.
Yeah. when did you guys start becoming real, active on stage? I mean, you had the reputation of being called athletic rock. When did that start?
Well, that very first gig in 1975 at school, we ended the gig by throwing all our guitars around the stage and knocking our amps over. So it started then.
Wow.
We used to rehearse back then in an empty room and smash our equipment up. So, we were rehearsing as kids in our front room of the house, and Paul dropped the guitar, and it went bong, and it went off into feedback, and we all looked at each other and went, wow, that sounds great. Do it again. And that's where that all came from, basically. Just acting wild and making noises. And we got the reputation in Newcastle as the crazy band, because the majority of the bands in the mid to late 70s then, they were all trying to be the Eagles.
Boring.
So then we come out like a bunch of maniacs. We stuck out like a sore thumb,
Yeah.
We were the ones listening to the radio late at night going, Ted Nugent, never heard of him, but that's a cool song. So we play Pony Express and Blue Oyster Cult. Wow. Song called ME262. Let's do that. That sounds cool. It's stuff we'd hear, like by 78, you were getting rock stuff on the radio. So Rock and Roll Damnation by AC/DC. It was on the TV. We taped it. Oh, let's learn it. And the next weekend we'd be out playing it,
Wow. And you said you saw Van Halen in 1979. I'd like to talk about that concert for a couple of seconds. So how was that concert, and what did you think of Eddie after seeing that particular show?
Well, Van Halen, I'd heard all this stuff about them. Oh, they blew Sabbath off. They were amazing. This band's incredible. And the first song I heard was Ain't Talking About Love. And I'm like, and? Where's this amazing guitar player? I don't hear it. And, a couple of little harmonic things. Nothing. Then I heard I'm the One. I went, okay. Then I heard Eruption. I went, okay. And I had to get the record. And of course, I was blown away like everybody else.
Yeah.
And their first headline tour for Van Halen 2, and they played there, and they were like an hour late going on stage. And you got to understand, in Newcastle, instead of going on at 9 o'clock, going on at 10 o'clock is unheard of, the death knell, because 90% of the people there are using public transport, which all stops at 11. So the place was angry and like a tinderbox ready to explode.
Wow.
And I think it was by design, because I've heard of them doing this on this tour at a lot of other gigs. I think it was just a very deliberate strategy, because, there's a lot of P.T. Barnum about what David Lee Roth did, very much so. He just pull every trick in the book. So the place is nuts, and by the time, the guy comes on, Van Halen will be on in 5 minutes, the place goes crazy. And they come out, and they were great. They were just excellent. And of course, Dave's shtick sometimes gets a little old, where you had to do the long rambling monologues between every song and all this, and then say, last time we were here, we had the radio from the United States taking a broadcast. Well, we've beaten that this time. Now it's the television. Bring on the TV crew. And had these two guys with an obviously fake TV camera, and people were lapping it up. And you're being broadcast live on the US TV.
Wow.
Hilarious. And then, the Jack Daniels bottle full of iced tea and all the tricks in the book.
Yeah.
But as a band, they were tight as hell, and he did everything that was on those records and more, with a smile on his face. So it was a killer show. Absolutely. Yeah. Great band.
Absolutely. Did you end up ever playing any gigs with Van Halen on any festivals or that?
No, never. I got to see them in 80, the year after, when they did Women and Children First, which was a great concert. And then years later at the Giant Stadium in New York, where the Monsters of Rock thing.
Wow.
When they had Sammy with them, which was a great show as well. Different, but a great show.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go back to our timeline here. So let's talk about 1980 when your first single, Don't Need Your Money, was released on Neat Records. What was it like for you to have a single out at that point, for you personally?
Oh, that was game-changing. That was just, nobody... You never think of this. I mean, literally 6 months before, we were playing clubs and pubs in Newcastle. And then, boom, you've got a real record. And it's being reviewed in national papers, and it's being played on the radio. And to just physically hold that was, it was like a dream come true. Because it doesn't mean anything now, but back then it was a huge deal to have a record. And yes, it was an independent label, but again, there wasn't that many independent labels. It got played on Radio 1, which is basically the main pop station, the biggest station in England. And this guy, John Peel, who was a very influential DJ, he had this one mantra where he would play new music. And it wasn't a case of like he liked it or hated it. It was just like, this is new, I'm playing it. And you guys figure it out. So he got Don't Need Your Money, and he played it. And Ozzy Osbourne happened to be listening. He goes, who's this band? I like this band. Let's get them on tour with us.
Wow.
So, boom, we're on the Blizzard of Oz first UK tour. We did 4 dates with them.
Oh, wow.
It was, wow. And that was, being dropped in at the deep end at the big time. All of a sudden, it's like, oof, here we go. And it was killer. And from that followed Whitesnake and playing with Iron Maiden and Motorhead and what have you,
Wow, those are some tough audiences. How did they react to Raven? Did they just love you guys from your first note? Or
again, we cut our teeth playing the working men's clubs in the northeast of England. Entertain us or die, I mean, a famous story out there. I mean, we're from Newcastle. There's a town 10 mile away called Sunderland, and the towns are vicious soccer, football rivals. Mm-hmm. So whenever we'd play near Sunderland, the DJ would be always, and next up, it's the boys from Newcastle. Boo! And these people would have their coasters, beer mats, and they'd write requests and put them on the stage. So you'd say, smoke on the water. You'd say, victim of changes. And quite often you'd say, fuck off, Yeah. That was always a popular request. And you had to just engage, entertain, enrage sometimes to get a reaction. Because the worst reaction you can get is, nothing, bland. So we'd fight to get a good reaction. And in the cases where we didn't, we'd irritate them and get a bad reaction and drive them mental,
Right.
So, and we played a gig once, and there was a big punk rock band from up there called the Angelic Upstarts that cancelled the show, and all their fans came to our show. And it's like, oh God, punk's crazy. And, we got them going. That's always been our stock and trade. We thrive on being given an audience who doesn't know who we are, and in some cases is actively against having us there. We played with Whitesnake at literally 2 days' notice. It's like Gary Moore, who had a band called G-Force at the time, has dropped off the tour. Can you guys fill in for 2 dates? Like, yeah, absolutely. So they didn't tell anybody. We're ready to go on. The guy comes out and says, hey, everybody, Gary Moore can't make it tonight. Here's Raven. Boo! And we won them over.
Wow.
That's especially back then, it was a little tiered through the country. The northeast and up to Scotland was kind of audience where they were tough, but if they thought you were good, they'd give you half a chance, and then they'd be with you, and they'd be with you for life.
Yeah.
And the further south you got, they were a bit more blasé, a bit more, arms folded, sitting at the bar. I'm not sure if he's playing that G-sharp minor correctly, that type of thing.
Wow.
But that eventually broke down. I mean, the first time we played London with Ozzy, the audience was like mannequins. It was horrible. And I was trying to hit people in the front row with my guitar, and, nothing. Not a thing. Next time we played there, Iron Maiden, it was excellent. It was great. And every time since. And as the world's got smaller, the metal audience has got more homogenized in that manner where they want to go out and have a good time.
Yeah.
Which is all kind of people.
Yeah. And then after you released 2 records on Neat Records, Rock Until You Drop in 1981 and then Wiped Out in 1982. And then Atlantic Records, or actually, I'm sorry, Megaforce Records noticed you and released the classic All For One record.
Yeah, they licensed it. It was actually on Neat in Europe.
It? Okay.
And they licensed that, and that's how we got our relationship with John Z and Megaforce, and ended up, breaking away from England and coming over to the States. But, yeah, I mean, those albums were groundbreaking. I mean, we had the first independent heavy metal album out in England. No one else. There'd been singles with no independent album, for what it's worth.
Wow.
And it charted. It got in at 70 or something like that. It actually charted. So that was a huge deal. And playing those high profile shows certainly helped as well.
Yeah. And now when you went over to America in 1983, I mean, anybody that's a metal fan knows that you toured with Metallica for the Kill 'Em All For One tour. I want to talk about that. I mean, I really wish I was old enough to go to that tour. Can you just give me some insight on how amazing that was?
Well, it was, this was our first headline tour of the States. And John Z says, I've got the biggest band in San Francisco to open up for you. And we're like, the biggest band in San Francisco is Journey. They're not going to open up for us. What are you talking about? Metallica. Who? Never heard of them. And the tape came in the mail, and it was the No Life to Leather. And it sounded like Motorhead played at the wrong speed, like it's 78 on a record player. I was like, all right, these guys sound good. This'll do. Okay, cool. And that was it. We got there, and this was their first tour. They were very green. They'd only played here and there. They hadn't done any tours per se. It was always Weekend Warrior stuff. And it was great. We got on with them wonderfully, and it was improbable that it actually happened and continued through the end. I mean, there was 17 people in the touring party. We had a 6-berth Winnebago and 2 trucks.
Oh, wow.
So, the majority of the tour on the long drives, we were in the back of the truck with mattresses. It was because, they'd went so apeshit in the Winnebago, they'd ripped the door off the toilet and someone had taken a dump in there, so it smelled disgusting. And they had one of those tables that folds down into a bed. Well, they were slam dancing and that got broken, so people were just sleeping on the floor,
Oh my God! It must have been an amazing time though to be a young band.
Well, we were just happy to be there. It was the culmination of a dream. We're doing a headline United States tour, and you can't take that off us. It was great, and we played, on Long Island. We played Boston and Buffalo, Rochester, and then we played Chicago, and the bigger cities, what have you. Great, and then we got dunked into Arkansas, which was like another planet, even for them. For Metallica and the American crew, they were like, "Where are we and why?"
Right. Wow.
So that was definitely strange. But, same concept. And, we played Oklahoma, and there was this gig that was just like the Blues Brothers, except there wasn't chicken wire. And they're throwing stuff at Metallica, and Metallica's freaking out and hiding behind the drums during the set.
Wow.
Oh, my God. Well, who cares? We've had worse at Cornforth United Social Club outside of Sunderland. Let's go. So we get on there and they're throwing stuff at us. And like, that's that all you got? And we get up and climb on the tables and kick their beers over. And like, come on, let's start a real riot. Let's get going. And just like the Blues Brothers, they give us a huge round of applause and continued throwing stuff.
That's
so very, very crazy.
Yeah.
But no, it was, and I think it was very influential. I think a lot of young kids come to see this show, and it was just like, wow, never seen anything like that before. And if they had bands, they were inspired to do more, or they were inspired to start their own bands, which is great,
Yeah, absolutely. One of the gigs that you spoke about playing Buffalo, that was August 3rd, 1983, and that gig was special because Motorhead actually headlined that show with Raven and Metallica. Do you remember anything about that particular show?
Yeah, I remember. Motorhead were touring at the same time, and we got added on, and we played with Motorhead before, so Lemmy remembered us, and which was fun. We were just sitting out on his tour bus while he was reading dirty jokes out of a book and laughing his ass off, while Robbo was sitting there drunk in the corner with his pink shorts on. Very strange. I remember there was a huge fight between our tour manager and their tour manager where they pulled guns on each other.
In Buffalo?
Which is, oh yeah.
Wow.
And also that our touring guy, we toured with monitors, which was kind of a smart thing to do. And he just turned them all down at the power amp because the guy was flooring the board. It's Motorhead, it's everything on 11. But if you turn the amplifiers down to start with, in the corner, it doesn't matter how loud it goes, it's not going to blow up, right? So there was all this bickering and nonsense going on between. And famously, the dressing room was it was the kitchen of this club. And they had a walk-in freezer. And as we were ready to leave after checking, the door opens and out comes Lemmy with a cardboard box with pita bread written on it. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, you've got to steal something, haven't you? And he walks out.
So he stole a box of pita bread?
Yeah. just because.
Wow.
Very strange. But, everyone loved Motorhead. Absolutely. It was, and even that Robbo was so weird live. He's just noisy and sloppy, but the songs were the songs. They're still great.
Yeah, definitely. And then let's fast forward to 1985 when you guys signed up with Atlantic Records. Was that, in retrospect, is that something that how do you look at your signing with Atlantic Records back in '85? Was it a good thing?
It's one of those things. I mean, was it the greatest thing ever? We thought it was at the time. It turned out to be, more of a curse than a blessing. But it's life. You got to go through these things to get through the other side. We'd had an incredible run of good luck. We'd worked very hard, but an incredible run of good luck. And we came over in '84 to tour to get a deal. We were on tour until we got a deal. And, the tour was going great. We had Anthrax. It was their first tour opening up for us. So great touring package, killed everywhere. Due to do a huge show in New York, Rob breaks his wrist. So we had to postpone that. Did this show finally, it was great, and then we prepped this big show at the Roseland Ballroom, and it was Anthrax opening, Metallica in the middle, and then we were closing the show. And it got a lot of notice because there's like 3,500 crazy metalheads in the middle of Manhattan for a show with bands that aren't on major labels. That made a lot of people go, whoa, what is going on here? This is different. There was a lot of record company people there, and we got signed. And Metallica got signed, and Anthrax got signed. We all got our deals from it.
Wow.
But the guy who was running the heavy metal end of Atlantic was in rehab at the time So they'd sent a guy down who was the disco guy. He signed us. So when the rehab guy came back, it was like, well, I didn't sign you. I'm not interested. And, you know, and the entire company had no concept of what heavy metal was. They just saw a band with personality that had a lot of hooks in their music that maybe could be molded to do something else. So the first album is a continuation from All for One, Stay Hard.
Right.
There's a lot of parallels. So, you know, there was no... The only thing they pushed was to do a cover of Hard Ride off our first album, which was kind of pointless, but okay, this is the worst thing. You know, the slippery slope. And by the second album, there was a lot more interference and pushing and behind-the-scenes stuff of, you know, we need hits, baby, we need hits. And we ended up doing a record that was out of character.
Yeah, the package back.
What we were, you know, and we got a producer, Eddie Kramer, who was known for one thing, which is, you know, getting that live, energetic feel in the studio. And he was, you know, roped into what we were doing, which was this kind of high-tech heavy metal album. And the parallel, of course, is Turbo by Judas Priest. I mean, it's even got the same guitar synthesizer sounds on it. You know, we all got the same toy at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's like I say, it was a learning thing. We learned that we didn't want to spend 6 weeks in the studio. We didn't want to play click, 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 one at a time, do a click track. We didn't want to spend a month mixing. This music demands more of a improvisational, spur of the moment, lightning in a bottle type of thing, you know, rather than meticulously playing every note one at a time, you know. So, and basically the relationship with the record company was just like, well, screw these guys. So we're going to do an EP, which was the Mad EP. We're going to go out and tour with Twisted Sister. And, you know, they had their own problems and their tour got cancelled. And then we went on to we toured by ourselves. And then we went to do the Life's a Bitch album, which was, you know, back on track. And we've basically been back on track ever since.
Yeah. Did it take a while for you guys to, like, you know, regain your, like, fan base after that 1986 release, The Pack is Back?
Oh, yeah, because it wasn't just the album being, you know, like a left turn and not being, you know, and being a far more commercial entity. It came right at the time when music was changing. That was the thing, because there wasn't any. I mean, we aren't a thrash band, but we're not a glam band either. And that's, you know, the music diverted into these two paths. You're either one or the other.
Yeah.
And we had to get right through the other side of the grunge thing before we started getting over all of that. And, you know, that's the way it goes. You put a lot of work in, a lot of great things happen really quickly. And if you screw up, it's going to take you an awful long time to climb back.
Yeah.
Now it's taken up until like 10 years ago for us to really establish ourselves back even slightly to where we were. But, you know, in the meantime, we toured a lot and did a lot of great music. So,
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
It's just part of the gig.
Yeah. Was there any time that you actually contemplated maybe breaking up the band during that time?
No, but the worst thing that happened is things were going very well. And then my brother had a terrible accident in 2001 and had a building collapse on him.
Oh, God.
And nearly killed him. And it took him like another 3 years before he could learn to walk again.
Oh, geez. Wow, I didn't know that.
So that was a real problem, you know?
Yeah.
And a couple of years after, we did a couple of gigs. We did like 3 gigs in the Northeast with him in a wheelchair. And it was like, wow, is this how it's going to be?
Huh.
You know, because you didn't know. But he's a fighter. He's stubborn. I mean, initially, he was going to die. Then they were going to cut his legs off. And he just said, nope, you're not doing that. Well, this left leg's going to hurt. Nope, you're not doing that. Well, you'll never walk again. Nope, not doing that. And he proved them all wrong, which is astonishing. And that in itself was inspirational to say, hey, if we can get over this, we can get over anything, you know?
John, I want to thank you for doing this great interview. My last question for you, is there anything else that you still want to accomplish with Raven?
Oh, well, we're fit. We're playing better than we ever have. We're doing the best album we've ever done. There's a lot to do. So there's still countries we haven't played. We want to do some opening slots, especially in the States, and reach some people that haven't seen us, because that's the best way to do that. You know, it's always great preaching to the converted, but you got to reach out and steal other people's audiences. And we'll be hoping to do a lot more of that once this nonsense with the virus is over.
Yeah.
We've got dates booked in February for Europe. And, I mean, even last year, we played China for the first time, Ecuador for the first time, Chile for the first time, you know, Australia for the first time. There's still new worlds to conquer and new music to make and stages to go and jump around on. So, you know, we're excited. Very.
All right, sounds good. Well, John, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, John.
And that concludes our interview with John Gallagher of Raven. Thank you for listening. For more on Raven, please visit ravenlunatics.com. To hear more Glam Metal Interview Series interviews, please visit glammetal.com and also rockmusicstar.com.